Good morning, everybody. Natalie coming to you live. Just wait to see if people jump on. I'm gonna do this actually. I'm not gonna invite people. I'm just gonna energetically call in the people that choose to hear this message, and know that and trust that the people that are supposed to hear it do. Because that's part of the work that we do, is trusting the process, trusting that the people that need to hear what they need to hear will hear it. And I truly believe that. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, Rick. Good morning, Sandra. Sharonda. Sorry, I'm probably not saying your name right. I killed it. Sorry. But I wanted to go talk a little bit more about the subject of the masculine and feminine, because this right here, that right there is a golden nugget. But before we do that, just want to say cheers. Coffee. I like to do the slurp. They say in China, if you don't slurp, that's rude, and that you don't like the food. So people like slurping. Anywho, I just wanted to talk, and hydrate. Okay, you're going to drink coffee. So cheers to you this morning. So the divine feminine, the divine masculine, I really want to just dive into that a little bit further, just because if you learn to master these two energies within yourself, you can create a world for yourself of mastery. And what I mean by mastery is that you're able to take the energies, and I'm always talking about energies, fuse them together and really create the life of your dreams, right? So oftentimes we have gurus, or we have leadership people who go out, write books, and sort of talk about creating vision boards, doing all these things. And they're great. And don't get me wrong, I do my own kind of visioning and stuff like that, but there needs to be some directive action behind it. There needs to be something that's going to move the needle forward. You have to do something. You can't just sit and meditate and expect for things to show up. Okay? Why? Because we're always in forward movement. We're always moving forward, right? Creating, generating. Now you could sit there and just meditate and see what happens. So again, fusing of these two energies is critical if you want to master your life. So I want to talk about healing, again, the divine masculine energy, because I started talking about that yesterday, and sort of went on and on and on about that. And I want to really continue to with that dialogue, because what happened, and this is just by observation, for me, this is how I perceive the world, is that I lived in India for a year, and I noticed a difference in the men in India. And I noticed that they had intuition in a way that I didn't necessarily see here in America, which is kind of interesting to me, because it was different, right? There was this knowing, this, like if I was sad or if I was hurt, the guys would be like, "What's wrong? Your energy's off." And I'm like, "Well, what? Like, how do they know?" So I would lie. I'd be like, "No, I'm perfectly fine." But no, that's not what happened. What happened is they would continue to say, "No, your energy's off. I can feel it." I'm like, who are these people? And which made me fall in love with the culture, because they're very in tune, and the men honor the women, they revere them. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's not a lot of ugliness that happens with the women there and stuff like that, okay? But it happens everywhere. But there is a difference in, and I will say there's a caste system, and okay, we could go on about culture over there, but I'm not going to do that. Let's just say that the people that I was around, they really had this internal knowing. The men had an internal knowing. And so I was like, wow, what's the difference between here in America, the men, and the men in India? What's the distinction here? Why do I feel like when I'm in my home base, right, in America, that men just kind of don't have that intuition? It's like, who cares? And they make all these terrible slurs about, you're just bitching, or, you know, when you're on your when you're on your cycle, you know, all these kind of things. And I'm like, you know, but it was a different vibe when I was in India. It wasn't like that. It was more like, how can I support you? How can I help you? How can I, you know, I want you to feel good and take care of your health. You know, the first question they would always ask is, have you had your breakfast? So, which I thought was amazing, right? So again, what I think, and here's what I think, because the Western, like our paradigm in the Western world is, you know, what is it? We think that creation, right? We were created, and very scientific, which is very masculine. And again, there's nothing wrong with the masculine. But how do we fuse the two as a culture, as a consciousness, as coming together to bridge the two so that we can develop wholeness, right? Within and without. And so here's my take on it, okay? You guys may have your own personal take on it, and I would love for you to share, you know, your thoughts, because I don't know it all. I'm going off observation and my internal energy and what I feel. But you know, that I'm always open. I'm open to new things. So here's what I think. What I think is that because we live in such a scientific driven mindset here in America, that all of the people, including women, have assumed a masculine role. And as we assume this masculine role, we forget to honor the divine feminine, okay? And so we make it wrong, okay? So I just want to know how many times you were made wrong for crying, or being vulnerable, or being open, or sharing your feelings and emotions. That's very feminine principle. And so what I think has happened is there's been some historical trauma and damage within the culture. And so for me, how do we heal? How do we begin to heal? How do we begin to move it forward? Hey, Doreen. Hey, Michael. I can't see who's on here. I just see that no one's on here. So, but I just see Doreen come in. But I think people come and go all the time. It's fine. Anyway, so to heal, here's what I think gets to happen. And I think it starts with us being brave enough, as our human self, being brave enough to speak our authentic truth. And you're hearing that a lot in the media and stuff like that. I know Oprah made some quotes, and, you know, people have their judgments or whatever, but she did say some really good stuff about, you know, speaking our authentic truth. Well, what does that mean? It means that you have to be vulnerable. Now, vulnerability is scary for people. I'm scared, right? Like I'm scared to be vulnerable. But I do it anyway, because if I can be vulnerable, then guess what? Everybody else, I give them permission to do what they internally want to do anyway, which is be vulnerable. And it's scary. Why? Because how do we place our deepest parts of ourselves into someone's hand and trust that it's going to be safe, right? Well, we don't know, but we can say that there are people we do trust. There are people that we do can open up to. And are you doing that? Or are you just keeping it internal? And if you are, you're just building up anger, frustration. You're building up these things that are toxic for you. And so I think that we get to just be vulnerable and open up. And the vulnerability, it is a sacred feminine principle. And so we take that sacred feminine, right? And we allow, as women, we get to be the ones to do the work first. And I say that because it's not as like us versus them, or men and women, but women have the power, okay? And we have the power to hold a space greater than a man. So how do I explain space? So there's space, right? I think I've done this before, but you see this glass, right? And that glass is taking up a space. If I take this glass away, there's still space. The space didn't leave, but what's showing up in the space is maybe the book. Now I've filled the space with something different, okay? So we have the potential to hold the space of vulnerability. And it's a scary place. I promise you, I've I know because I've done it and I've walked through the fire, and it's not an easy space to hold at first. But once you do it and you see the beauty, right? We heal, we heal others, we heal other women for one, and then we heal men for two. And that's what's needed because they have been conditioned to be hard, conditioned to be, strong and hard. And in strong, what it means is, you've got to hold in your tears, or you've got to hold in your pain. And the reality is it takes strength to release that. It takes more strength to release that and be vulnerable than it does to hold it in. And so there you go. That's the trick. Isn't that crazy? To release, to let go of, to surrender, to open up your arms and drop. So they call this the hanged man. And what I do sometimes, just so that I can feel the energy of the hanged man and letting go, is at the gym, they have this machine where you put your feet and then you like hang upside down. And I just close my eyes and I just drop and I let go. And we talked about the letting go, or I talked about the letting go yesterday. In the letting go it's the surrender. It's the seeing life through a new perspective, and it's vulnerable. It's because we want to hold on, but sometimes we've got to let it just go. And in doing that, sometimes you've got to ask yourself where you're feeling that, right? I think most people, I feel it in my stomach, right? They call it butterflies, right? You get the butterflies or whatnot in your stomach, and those butterflies, but again, that energy, what does that energy mean? It means that you're doing the work. And you're moving through those butterflies regardless of the sensation. And then you can utilize that energy to propel forward, which is what I always talk about. So how do we heal? Again, that's how we heal. That's my personal belief, that we as women get to be vulnerable. We get to show men that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to open up and to tap into their heart. Because if we don't do this, we have hard hearts. And that's not going to serve anybody. It leads to war. It leads to people fighting. It leads to things that, it just arguments and frustration and hurt. And really, it's just a hardened heart. So we get to hold, hey, Michael, we get to hold the space of vulnerability for people. And it's, again, I know it's not an easy thing, and most people think it's a weakness, and in fact it's a strength. It's a strength. And once we heal, once we show these men as women, as we rise to our own feminine graces, we rise to our own power, we will then show them how to use vulnerability as a force of power, as opposed to a force of fear, okay? Because it's not. And so this distinction is super, super critical. I think it's what's going to heal our planet, because it's going to allow for people to have compassion, right? Compassion's another huge thing when you're vulnerable, because we can look at our brothers and sisters and say, I see you, I get it, I understand, I've been there. And we all have our stories, right? We all have a story to tell. We all have our heartaches and our pains and our suffering. And in that, we share that common thread. Now, what happens is we just close up and we don't tell people. And we're scared to be vulnerable because maybe your mom and dad told you not to cry, I can say that authentically that's what happened to me, right? I was shut down when I was wanting to open up and cry and be vulnerable. There was that energy of, don't cry, you've got to be strong. Well, that not crying and being strong, what it didn't serve me, didn't help me, it didn't do anything for me, right? What it did is it actually made me not want to speak my truth. It made me not want to open up and tell people how I was feeling. And then that turned into sadness and it was good. I'm not going to say that I didn't have my benefits from it, because when I look back, I did internal work. Okay. So again, if we're to heal, we get to open up. Hey, Victoria. Victoria knows about this. I don't know if you're still on here. I'm looking on here and I like, don't see anybody. So I don't know if you guys are jumping on and off. I'm like, whatever. This girl's crazy. She's a wacko. Which is fine. I don't care. Because I'm being called to speak my authentic truth, and I'm going to. And I feel like in order to heal the planet, that each one of us gets to just bring our gifts to the world, right? Bring your gift because you have one. And don't be afraid. And you're going to have people that might, like they call them haters or whatever, but does it matter? No. The reason that they're upset, the reason that they're doing that is you've got to love them anyway. They're doing it because they feel bad that they're not using their authentic self and their gift the way that they want to. And so we got to love them up and let them know that they have it too. And that's it. When people are, hating on you or whatever, don't get mad. Be like, you know what? I love you. And you know what? You also have gifts. You have gifts to offer the world. And you've got to bring those gifts to the world because they're needed. So don't get mad at me. Go out and do your thing. Go out and share your gift because, you've got it. Just like you people that are on here have your gifts that you offer. I mean, I always see all the people that join, just the amazing work that you guys do. And I have such deep love for each and every one of you who shows up because I just can see the beauty in everybody. I really can. And I see the beauty in you guys and what you're up to. So let's heal the planet, okay? So I, encourage you today to go out and be vulnerable. Like, just do it. And if it, like ladies, if you're on here, then I would say for the ladies, just go out and open up, be open, be okay, and do it with someone you trust. If you're like, I'm not just going to be vulnerable with everybody, because it's a practice. I get it. It doesn't just happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. But I will say that if you just opened up a little bit, just to someone you trusted, and allowed yourself to heal internally, then eventually it'll become a practice. And when it becomes a practice, it gets easier and easier and easier to do. Okay, so I highly encourage that you guys do this. I'm asking, the women and also the men. There's men out there who are okay with being vulnerable as well. And so I ask you that you open up to somebody or, a friend. And then let's just heal together, you guys. Like, let's just make this a pact where we're like together. We're in this together. We're going to do this as a team. Because we matter. Okay, so looks like nobody else is on here. Like, people just got on and off. But if not, listen to the whole thing, go back, whatever. Take the parts that you need. Again, I didn't invite people in for an audience. Whoever's meant to hear this will hear this. And whoever's meant to hear it till the end will hear it till the end. I know my roommate woke up, so he's hearing it because he's forced to. Good morning. He's forced to hear it like that. Pena. Anywho, okay. So here's my coffee. Cheers. Good morning. Love you guys. I mean it. Oh, wait. Lovely. Okay. Love you, mean it. Bye-bye. Yay.